Shari is a fighter. She's always been a fighter. She was diagnosed at birth with cerebral palsy, which is a developmental disorder affecting her brain, which affects her ability to move and balance. She also had an intellectual disability, which she grew from.
Shari didn't allow these conditions to hold her back. She participated in Special Olympics. She went to movies. She enjoyed time with her friends and her family. She was basically living a full life before these unfortunate events.
So Shari graduated from South Kitsap High School, despite her limitations, and she led a very independent life. At age 22, she moved out on her own and was living completely independently until this collision happened. So on November 12th, 2015, Shari was walking home from the bus stop. It was a city road in Port Orchard. It was dark, it was raining, there was no sidewalks in the roadway. Because of the roadway conditions, the roadway had flooded and she was walking in the roadway. Prior to the collision, two passerbys, Good Samaritans, saw that she was in the roadway and stopped and talked to her and advised her to get out of the roadway. They were concerned about she may be injured. So unfortunately, within minutes, they proved to be right. She was hit by a vehicle that didn't see her in the roadway. Luckily, the fire department quickly arrived on scene, transported to the hospital where she remained for 6 weeks until December 31st, 2015. Shari's injuries were massive. She had broken all 4 limbs, internal fractures to her chest, massive internal injuries requiring a colostomy bag, a catheter. She was put on a trach, unable to speak or unable to breathe on her own. It was significant. So Shari wasn't discharged home from the hospital. Rather, she was transferred to a nursing home, a skilled living facility, where she remained almost a year.
Shari's mom initially reached out to us while she was still in the nursing home. I took the call, I discussed it a little bit with her, and then I immediately called John. Once we talked about the case, John went out and met with both Shari and her mother, and we immediately realized it was a both serious and complicated case.
It was pretty gut-wrenching. Shari had a colostomy bag. She was in a wheelchair. Both her legs and her arms were broken. Her injuries were rather serious. It was difficult to communicate. She could not speak because of the trach that was still in her. But we learned how to speak with short, direct questions, nodding of the head, for her to make sure that I knew what she was saying and I could understand her. So one thing that really struck me hard was that Shari's birthday is just a few days after mine. We're literally the same age. And here I am sitting across from her in a nursing home where she's unable to speak and just a victim of a horrible accident and moving forward from her. And so I knew it was serious. I knew we had to get a team together and to work hard for her. So by the end of that meeting, it was clear that she would not be able to communicate. She wouldn't be able to give us any more information about the collision. She didn't remember the impact any more than the witnesses or the police report. And due to her disabilities and the aggravation of those injuries, it became clear that she may not even be competent to testify in the trial of her case.
We didn't want to put Shari in a position where she would be manipulated by the defense attorney. We knew that they would try to depose her, and we did our best to protect her from that by showing the court that she was not legally competent to testify on her own behalf.
So at the same time, from talking to her mother, she was the epitome of optimism throughout the entire case. You know, she's retired. Her daughter, age 45, gets involved in this injury, is in the hospital and then a nursing home. And she lost everything she owned. Shari lost her apartment, literally everything, all of her belongings. Her mother took her in without question, helped her every day, made sure she got to the doctor. She did everything she could for Shari. Shari's mother always had a smile on her face. She was just incredible to be around.
This was an unusual case from the get-go. In the typical auto versus pedestrian case, we're only dealing with an auto and the client. In this case, we were dealing with the city of Port Orchard because the roadway was unsafe. The roadway flooded, and there was no safe place for Shari to walk, given the fact that there was no sidewalk in the area.
So then we get into liability concerns. Because she's walking in the roadway when she gets hit by the car, we're concerned about what put her in the roadway. So we're looking at issues like the roadway flooding. Why is it flooding? The police report noted that there was a concern about lighting. So I had to go out to the scene and investigate what was the problem. And when I got there, I learned that there was a home along the roadway that allowed a tree to be overgrown and block the streetlight, which meant that the driver couldn't see her prior to the collision. So our first job was to prove that the city was negligent for their failure to maintain the roadway in a safe condition, to allow the roadway to flood. But also we had to look at the lighting. Who owned the lighting? What was the conditions that allowed it to be a point where it could not be seen? A homeowner has a duty to maintain their trees so that they don't affect traffic. In this situation, the homeowner allowed the tree to grow for an extended period of time around that light, blocking the roadway, affecting the visibility of the pedestrians at night. So the two issues for our team to address was the flooding, causing her to be in the roadway, and the insufficient lighting of the tree blocking the light that made her not visible to oncoming traffic.
And this really shows the lengths our firm will go to take care of our clients. In this case, we received numerous public records requests as a result of discovery in this case. We're talking about 3 terabytes or more of data that we had to go through to find other times where the city had received complaints about the roadway and about the flooding in that roadway. Through these discovery requests, we learned that the city of Port Orchard had known about the condition of the roadway for over 20 years and did nothing to rectify it.
So early on, I actually took my son out to the crash site with his drone. We needed to kind of map the area, look at it from a different perspective, not only about the roadway and the conditions that it was, especially at night when it rained, but moreover to look at the lot lines, the property lines, to determine who owned the tree and which property line it fell on.
Our initial concern was proving that Shari was walking in the correct direction against traffic. We hired a number of experts to help us in this pursuit. So we hired a medical expert who was able to determine the location of her fractures was consistent with her traveling against traffic.
We also hired a weather expert to prove that the water on the road was not a unique event. In Washington, it rains. It rains a lot. And so the concern was that the defense would argue this is a one-of-a-kind rainstorm. But in fact, the weather expert proved that this was the general rain that we have all the time in Port Orchard. It was not a unique event.
Despite all the experts we hired, the city and the homeowner denied 100% liability. They claimed that they were not at fault and they wouldn't even offer a penny. This forced us to file a lawsuit in the case.
So after nearly 2 years of litigation, summary judgment motions, extensive discovery, and finally a mediation, the case resolved in a settlement with all parties for over $3.5 million. So one of the good things about this settlement was that it really helped Shari and her mother. She went from losing everything in this collision to now having the ability to have a full life. We had a special needs trust set up for her. The trustee met with her and determined what she needed for the rest of her life. So they got a home. They got a car so she no longer had to rely on public transportation. Her life was forever changed, and her mother could now enjoy her retirement that she had always dreamed of. It was a job well done. We all worked hard for Shari and her family. And when all the dust settled and everything was done and the case was resolved and the trust was set up, I met with Shari and her mother in our Port Orchard office. By then, Shari was mobile. She was walking. And she came in with probably the biggest smile I'd ever seen, tears in her eyes. And her mom gave me like the biggest hug ever. And I'll always remember that. It was a very heartwarming end to a many-year struggle for our client.
To me, it was really amazing to see all the work that happened come to fruition, really, with the result for Shari. It's really a life-changing sum of money for her and her mother and her family. And while the money is very important, the closure that she was able to get as well, having gone through this ordeal and then gone through the litigation battle, was very important to her as well. We keep up the fight because we care. Really, at the end of the day, that's our most important thing that we can bring to the case, is our care for our clients and the care for their case. It's why we do what we do.
This was one of the first cases of the firm that really went from a one-attorney case to a team. This case was really taking multiple hours of work, of time and research. And it became apparent, not only because of her injuries, but because of the damages that we needed to make a recovery, that we needed the team effort. And so we quickly assembled a team across our firm. The partners got involved, the shareholders got involved, our paralegals got involved to make sure that everything we needed to get done could be done. Everyone who worked on this case will tell you that without every team member's input, the case could not have been resolved for how it was resolved for Shari.
I'd also like to say that the work put into this case really shows the compassion and the ability of our firm across the state to come together to work on issues that might arise for our clients. It makes me proud to say that we're one of the largest personal injury attorney firms in the state, and we're able to leverage the knowledge across the state from all of our attorneys to assist our clients. What we're really here for is to get the best possible outcome for our clients. That means we're in it for the long haul. We're going to work as hard as we possibly can to make sure that justice is done and that our clients get the best possible recovery.